one of the KPIs or one thing I'd love to talk about more is net operating income, right? I think we have things like average daily rate, which is a metric that's great. But if you're paying a lot of money for that piece of business, that's going to impact your net operating income. So can you just define for that, what is net operating income and how does that impact asset value?
Sure. So net operating income is going to be near the bottom of your P&L statement, usually on that front page. Can't remember specifically if it's above or below EBITDA, but I'm sure you've heard those terms. And if you look at your P&L, it'll be there. So that's net operating income. It's what we have left. It's our profit after all of our expenses, whether they're variable or fixed. And that impacts asset value because that's how asset value is calculated. Sort of a really basic standard calculation in the real estate world is asset value or net present asset value. And that's related to your NOI or net operating income. And you can calculate that by using a capitalization rate. We often at Kalibri Labs just use an example of 8%. And so you divide your net operating income by that current capitalization rate. So we used an example a lot of a $750,000 NOI. You take that, multiply it by 8%, you get an asset value. It's $9.375 million or something like that, right? So that's how we look at that and just encourage you to be thinking this isn't just a top line business. Right. It's a bottom line business. This is a really unique industry where we are operating often a franchise or an independent business inside a real estate venture. And we have lost sight of that. And with the growth of institutional owners and larger family offices and REITs, it's necessary to understand the goals of the owner.
Absolutely. And I think what's also compelling, or what really turned on a light bulb for me, $750,000, you're like, wow, that's our net operating income. Fantastic. But when you put the multiple on it, that becomes 9 point whatever. We don't have a calculator, but we know we're in the 9 million range. But if that number goes up, let's say that now it's $900,000. When I go to do that math again, that's multiple millions more.
It definitely is. It's exponential.
Exponentially more. Yeah. So this is really important. If you're a marketer or you're in sales or in revenue, and you start to think about the context of the asset value, so this is where commercial strategy really gets in there, then you can go to ownership and go, well, the reason that we need to do this particular campaign that's going to cost us X amount of money is that we can drive this much revenue. This is the cost. This is our net operating income when we come back, and that's going to give us a multiple. And then the lights go on, right? Instead of the owner going, oh, that's going to be 50 grand. If the 50 grand is going to yield enough to drive the asset value. Is that a good way to think about it?
It's a really good way to think about it. So we often use just basic calculations when we're not working with specific hotels to illustrate that. And there's an example where if you are keeping 83% of your revenue and you go down to 81%, that's negatively impactful. It's over $1 million in asset value. The net impact is $100,000, but the asset value declines by $1.25 million.
Okay.
Right? Just by 2%. It's
2%.
Small.
Right.
So you go up by 3%. You make one different decision and you go from 83%, keeping 83% of your revenue to 84% of your revenue, and that's going to have an impact. I don't want to say it's nominal because I feel like that diminishes it, but small impacts make big differences when we're thinking about those decisions and the return on that particular activity, and understanding that and why an owner may say no, and understanding the information that you can bring to the conversation to make a difference, to change their mind, and also let them know that you understand why they're doing what they're doing.